Hey there, everybody. I thought that today, with the fire that has basically disabled Heathrow Airport for at least 12 hours today, causing massive disruption, it may be a fantastic time to discuss a vlog that I've been meaning to do for a long time, and that is that Neptune going into Aries is synonymous with fire. Fire that actually has a dramatic impact on culture, even on civilization as a whole, which you'll find out more as I go on to chat about it. So I'll come in the end maybe to talk about implications, why the fire happened, what could have gone on. But it wasn't the only fire happening today in the UK, because there were also two fires down in Cornwall. And I will put up a little picture over here of where those were. So quite interesting, right? Now, when I talk about fires, fires happen all the time throughout history, but some are more impactful. Some really say something about the trajectory of society. And that's what happens when you get these fires, when Neptune goes into Aries. Now, Neptune is entering Aries on March the 30th for the first time since, we'll get the date here, a long time anyway, like 160 years or whatever. So it is a very significant event. So I'm going to chat now about times in history when this Neptune going into Aries, or during Neptune in Aries, there were these pivotal fires. So what's Aries all about? It's about something quite dynamic, quite feisty, quite destructive, hot, high emotion, passion. Neptune is about dissolving boundaries. And what does fire do? It's total destruction. It destroys from which something else can be rebuilt, something very different from what potentially went before. So, okay, so of course, Aries is also associated with war, with destruction, and Neptune is associated with things that change society, things that shift the momentum, something that happens that can be seen as a natural disaster, but which is perhaps significant of a wider esoteric change subconsciously. So in 1861, which was the last period when Neptune was in Aries, we had the Great Chicago Fire, which happened in 1871. So it wasn't right at the start, but it was during the phase of Neptune in Aries. And that's one of the most famous urban fires in history, right? And it destroyed 17,500 buildings, leaving 100,000 homeless. So very significant numbers for that particular era. We also had the Peshtigo Fire, 1871, which is the deadliest wildfire in U.S. history, which killed up to 2,500 people in Wisconsin. There was also the Great Boston Fire in 1872, which destroyed over 770 buildings in downtown Boston. So that seemed really America-focused, right? There was also another fire. Now, this was in 1697, was the Great Fire of Warwick. Okay, so Neptune actually only went in afterwards, but at the end of Neptune in Pisces was this Great Fire of Warwick. And so it wasn't actually when Neptune was in Aries, it was just before. But there was the Great Fire of Copenhagen in 1728, shortly after Neptune left Aries, right? So that also had sort of a lingering effect. So in 1533, Neptune definitely in Aries for this one. The Great Fire of Moscow, which was in 1547, Neptune goes into Aries in 1533, and we have the Great Fire of Moscow in 1547. This is one of the largest fires in Russian history, and it destroyed much of the Kremlin. So striking at the heart of power in Russia, presuming Kremlin was where the power was in those days. I'm making that assumption, maybe not quite so. So in 1369 to 1383, we again have Neptune in Pisces, and there were multiple fires throughout medieval Europe. And the specific timings are a little bit iffy, obviously due to the fact of being so far back in history. Now, between 1205 and 1219, we have Neptune in Aries again. We have the Great Fire of London in 1212, burned down much of the medieval city, killing thousands, very significant for that particular era. So in 1041 to 1055, again, Neptune in Aries, we had the Constantinople fires. There were several instances of these, and the Byzantine capital suffered quite a hit down to those fires. So now we wonder what's going to happen this time with Neptune in Aries. Is it going to be more incidents in cities like Paradise, California? Obviously, it wasn't a fire. No, well, we just had the fires in California, didn't we? Which was also indicative of this fires in Los Angeles, right? North Los Angeles of just recently. So again, this build up to Neptune going into Aries, we're already seeing it. Now, there were also other instances, which I've just been recording here. So in the 1st century BC, between 32 BCE and 45 CE, we had the fire at the Library of Alexandria. So many of the classical works of literature were destroyed. Now, there's some dispute over this fire at the library in Alexandria. Some people say it was one event, some people it's a series of events over time, but think of the impact that had on society, on the way we evolved since then, the loss of knowledge, how much further we could have been ahead. Or, like what you say about the secret science, was that knowledge destroyed? Was the library, was things secreted out of the Library of Alexandria before it was burned down? Because no one can really tell, can they, what was destroyed? They can only assume. Is that what's in the archives of the Vatican? Who has that knowledge now? How do they use it against us, right? Because we could all be so much more enlightened if we had that knowledge. So see what I mean about these Neptunian in Aries fires being so impactful. So this was obviously the burning of the library in Alexandria was a major event in history. It led to the decline of the classical knowledge. And yeah, there was also the Great Fire of Rome in 64 CE, which started during Neptune and Aries. And that destroyed much of Rome, led to major reforms by Emperor Nero. Right. So we wonder also how that shaped where we are today. Again, those fires in Constantinople were caused by the Nika riots, and it led to urban reconstructing and the rebuilding of the Hagia Sophia, which obviously could be significant for many ways. Now, in 1212, obviously we were talking about the Great Fire of London. So let's recap. It was the most severe of the early fires in London, burned most of the city to the ground, 3,000 people died. I mean, these are significant numbers for 1212. A lot of people died by jumping in the Thames, and it broke out on the Southwark side of London Bridge. And while it was raging, another fire broke out, interesting, broke out the other side, and it hemmed in the numerous crowds who'd assembled to help the distressed. So people were essentially trapped because the surprise one broke out on the other side as well. So we talked about the Great Fire of Moscow. And another thing, what did the Great Fire of Moscow do? It sparked political upheaval. So I say these are significant fires because they tie into social events. We've talked about the Great Chicago Fire, the Boston Fire, and one more. In 1703, much of the city of Uppsala in Sweden was destroyed by fire. 90% of the city of Bergen in Norway was also destroyed during that period. And the Jamaican town of Port Royal, which was a center of trade for the Western Hemisphere, and at the time the largest city in the Caribbean, was also destroyed by fire. And British ships in the harbour were able to rescue a lot of the merchandise that had been uploaded. Oh, well, something positive, I guess. There were also a lot of really serious earthquakes affecting the Apennine area of Italy and central Italy during that time as well. So I think that's quite interesting, the link between Neptune and fires. And now we see again this fire in London, and I think it's also indicative of changes, the loss of competency and in maintaining the infrastructure that we're seeing, the decline of the UK, right? So it ties into this wider social thing. Just to mention also in 1703, not a fire, but there was the Great Storm of 1703, which was a cyclone that hit the British Isles, destroyed countless buildings, killing thousands at sea, and it ravaged southern England and the English Channel. So that's a few more on fires, and I'll come back and maybe discuss a little bit more about what this could all entail looking forward.